Remember when gaming was fun? Before microtransactions, live service games, and DLCs, there was getting together with your friends to LAN or even meeting up online to go questing. At its core, this is what Dark and Darker is all about. But maybe for some reason you've never heard of Dark and Darker, and even if you have, your knowledge may still be limited. Lucky for you, we've got just the ticket. So here's 6 important things you need to know about the highly anticipated Dark and Darker. Number 1. The devs actually care. Now you might think that this is a strange point to start with, but I think it's crucial to point this out. In their own words, Iron Mace is made up of a merry band of veteran game developers. One of the main reasons they've gone to the trouble of developing Dark and Darker is because they don't like the modern world of gaming. In their view, big gaming corporations have doubled down on exploitative practices and more closely resemble casinos than digital entertainment companies. As a direct result of these ethically questionable activities, Iron Mace's modus operandi is to win back the trust of gamers by creating games with heart and soul. Iron Mace have already held a few playtests in order to involve the community and listen to their feedback. And by taking the opinions and shared experiences of players into account, Iron Mace are taking the time to refine Dark and Darker so that it actually meets the needs of its target audience. Imagine that! Number 2. Dark and Darker honors classic gaming. In many regards, Dark and Darker is about getting back to the basics. So if you were or are still a fan of games like Dungeon Keeper, Baldur's Gate, and Diablo, then I have a strong feeling that Dark and Darker will cater to your tastes. On this basis, I would assume that Dark and Darker is mainly aimed at old school gamers, but I also think it's a great opportunity for modern gamers to experience something more grounded and authentic. While Dark and Darker may lack the high-end graphical fidelity and polish of modern AAA games, it's this very aspect that's part of its charm. Dark and Darker feels gritty and is a little rough around the edges. In this respect, the game feels a lot more believable and is closer to real life than the hyper realities that we see in most modern games. Dark and Darker is stripped down, slow-paced, and intense. If you're a fan of dark fantasy and a hardcore gamer, you're going to love Dark and Darker. Number 3. There are 6 classes to choose from, for now. You can either be a fighter, wizard, ranger, barbarian, cleric, or rogue. Naturally, each class has its own advantages as well as drawbacks. For example, wizards are able to cast powerful spells and use magical weapons, but they do low physical damage and have comparatively low health. On the flip side, barbarians have a huge amount of health but move and attack slowly. Either way, there's something here for just about everybody. But even if 6 classes still isn't enough, it seems that the devs do indeed plan on adding more classes to Dark and Darker in the future. If my sources are correct, one such class will be the Bard. I'm sure that Iron Mace have other classes in mind, but what they are exactly is yet to be revealed. Number 4. Dark and Darker is unforgiving. If you think you're a hero, think again. As I mentioned earlier, Dark and Darker is not for casual gamers. While it may be tempting to charge headlong at your enemies waving your sword around like a madman or mad maiden, NPCs do a massive amount of damage and in some cases can kill you in a single blow. However, you can easily survive by simply not getting hit. There are different dungeons with different levels of difficulty in Dark and Darker, but even on normal mode, you'll still need to be careful. Now, you can go solo in Dark and Darker, but if you want to improve your chances of survival, you'll want to party up with some other players. In many ways, this is the entire point of the game. Partner up with 2 friends or even complete strangers, defeat some enemies, and survive long enough to get your loot and get out. Take note that if you die, you lose everything. However, anything you put in your stash will remain there regardless of whether you live or die. Dark and Darker is all about high risk and high reward, so it's ultimately up to you to decide which risks are worth taking. Number 5. Darkness is your friend. Dark and Darker doesn't just have some random name that sounds cool. As the name suggests, the game is, dark. And don't you dare turn up that screen brightness. The good news here is that you can use the shadows to your advantage, so if things start going wrong in a battle, you can sneak off into the darkness and make a stealthy escape. There's really no shame in running away, especially if things look hopeless. But just as the darkness can work in your favor, others might have a similar idea. What I'm trying to say is, be careful of any unseen threats that might be lurking in the shadows. Failure to do so might result in you going straight from the frying pan and into the fire. And last but not least, number 6, beware of the death swarm. Horrible undead monsters and abominations aren't the only threat you'll face in Dark and Darker. Venture into the wrong area or take too long in a dungeon and you may find yourself face to face with the death swarm, an ancient and terrible curse that will consume your soul. If you want to survive, you'll need to find a blue escape portal or a red descending portal that will take you deeper down into the dungeon. Blue escape portals allow you to leave the dungeon with all your loot in tow. Red descending portals promise rarer loot but also tougher challenges, so if you're willing to take on this added risk, the rewards are much higher. Of course, there's also the chance that you could fail and lose everything, so keep this in mind before deciding. Dark and Darker will tempt you and play on your greed wherever possible. If you get a little too brazen, you'll be cut down to size in no time. Iron Mace will be holding another Dark and Darker playtest from April 14th to April 19th, 2023. I believe that this will be the final playtest before Dark and Darker goes into early access, but since nothing has been officially confirmed, this is subject to change. Regardless, Dark and Darker has garnered a lot of attention and is something that many gamers are looking forward to, so hopefully it comes out sooner than later. And there you have it. That's 6 important things you need to know about Dark and Darker before you start playing. So what do you think of Dark and Darker? Are you going to be taking part in the playtest in April? Let me know in the comments below. Please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so I can keep delivering hot content to you on a regular basis. That's all for now. From me and the adventurers here at Metasquad, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Farewell.